If you're just joining us, this is Lifetime Success Seminars. You're so welcome. We have a fantastic meeting arranged here for you. The topic of our conversation, if you saw our flyer, is about attitude and the power of attitude. So we're just going to dissect what attitude is and how that can impact our lives. And it's not going to be a one-man show today. We will have a bit of a presentation, yes, but the aim is for us to have an interactive discussion and discuss how attitude can really have an impact in our lives, both positively and negative, based on our own experiences and what we know. And then that way we can bounce off ideas and really learn from this. So yeah, a little bit about ourselves, Lifetime Success Seminars. My name is Charles Stephen, and I'm a co-host of Lifetime Success Seminars alongside Stephen Buraganya. And we run these seminars every other Saturday, and we raise conversations to do with personal development. So anything to do with health, fitness, finance, business, relationships, lifestyle, family, you name it, anything to do with any area of personal development. Those are the conversations we raise, and we challenge our communities to do better in those areas. And so this is more like a safe space, if you like, to have those kind of conversations and really encourage one another. Because I was telling Anthony earlier that, this world is a cruel place. It's like a battleground. You go here and there, and you get battered down by negativity and lots of these things. So it's important to have a safe space like this one, where we can sit down and really reflect on our lives and how we can improve ourselves and almost like recharge before we can get out there in the world and do our thing, whatever it is that is. So that's a little bit about what we do. Our conversation today is about attitude, and we already kind of started. Anthony was sharing a little bit about attitude towards work and why it's so important to have a good attitude at work. And so yeah, so may that continue. I don't want to interrupt that. So basically today aim is to have conversation on those areas. And what I hope we can do today is focus more on the practical side of things when it comes to attitude, as in what's our attitudes towards work, for instance, as what Anthony was talking about. What's our attitudes towards people, and relationships, and what's our attitude towards, say, money and wealth, because that can affect how we go about creating wealth, or making money, or how we manage it, for that matter, or what's our attitude towards health. That will determine how active we are in looking at our own health and that of others, And another big one, what's our attitude towards change, because this is really important. We're going through a period of change right now. Like here in the UK, so much is happening, the weather, the global warming, and that's across the world, economic changes, war in Ukraine affecting everything. So there are changes everywhere. Now, what's our attitudes towards that? How do we react to that? Are we receiving that with despair? Or are we joining the masses, worrying ourselves to death and really almost like beating ourselves down because of that? Or are we sucking it up and looking for opportunities and trying to make the best of whatever circumstance that we're faced with? So it all comes down to our attitude, and how the outlook of our lives really depends on our attitudes towards those things. So that's the aim of our conversation here today. And there are other things, attitude towards self. What's the attitude towards yourself? Because sometimes, if you're looking down on yourself, or you're so negative about yourself, that itself can have a knock-on effect on everything that you do. Can have a knock-on effect on your productivity. Can have a knock-on effect on your self-esteem, on your relationships, on everything. So attitude, we can look at attitude through all those different facets. And so the aim is to look at all those and share our experiences and see how we can really encourage one another on that. Like I said before, if you can have your screen on, that would be fantastic, because then that makes for a better meeting and better experience. There are just a few of us here right now. I hope more people will join us as we continue. So yeah, but we can't wait for anybody any longer. We'll just get started and take it from there. So yeah. So who wants to kickstart our meeting and just, let's share ideas. What is attitude? How does that affect us? Why is it so important for us to have a conversation on attitude? So yeah, let's get going.
Yes, Charles, I
Yes,
turned off
Anthony.
my video, I'm at work, so I'm just in the background, I'm listening. See, so
Got
like you
you.
said, I'm gonna introduce myself. My name is Anthony. I've been attending some of your program and they are lovely. So when we bring about this topic today, attitude, it was something that I'd really developed interest because, like you said, attitude is the only thing that defines the kind of person we are. Our
Mm,
attitude towards ourselves, it can go a long way. Our career, even educations, or even objective plans that we get for the future,
mm.
everything based on the attitude that we set. So as we go on, we're going to elaborate on this. So I want to give others the chance for us to see what we can do. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Brilliant. Thanks, Anthony. What about you, Alan? What do you think?
Um, um, I'm just quite a listen today, first of all, but add to these things like coming like it's like a behavior. It's like behavior. So I'm just quite digesting this topic here, and then I'll be joining to you guys, so anyone can join, can start doing that. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome, Alan. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's true. Our attitude is so much to do with behavior. As you will see through my presentation when I share my slides, behavior in our actions, what we do, our routines, how we react to things, it does speak a lot about our attitude. So you're absolutely spot on there. What about you, Grace? What do you think?
Yeah, as Alan said, it's behavior, your behavior towards whatever is happening, isn't it?
Mm.
It could be a negative thing happening, but if you look at the positive side,
Yeah,
it will go a long way. Instead of being negative, say, oh, this, I can do it. Or, there's something good out of this bad experience. And then you carry on, and it will give you the strength, energy to carry on. But if you say, oh, what is this? It's no good, and you'll be depressed, and then you will just not carry on doing whatever. Whereas there's a silver lining somewhere. So if you say, look, I'm going to do it, you end up successfully. I think it's behavior, your mind, your behavior towards whatever is happening.
Absolutely.
If you say negative will happen. If you say good things will happen. So it's mind over the matter or the body or whatever, mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Grace. Allow me, guys, to share my screen a little bit. I'm just going to go through a short presentation with you, and then we're going to have a discussion at the end on these areas of that we need to improve our attitude on generally, and we're going to have a general conversation on that. But let me share these slides with you. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can bring it up. Right. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. So basically, we're going to talk about attitude, but we're going to talk it from the negative side of things. We're going to talk about the diseases of attitude, the bad attitude, if you like, and then we're going to look at some of those negative attitudes that we need to kind of avoid, and from that we can learn what are the things we need to really develop in our lives. Okay, and as we go through these different diseases of attitude, I call them, or these negative attitudes, I want us to focus, like I said before, on the different areas, because I like this to be more practical, to be more applicable to our lives. Think of different areas in your life: your relationships, your work, your health, yourself. Like I said, attitude of when it comes to change and how you fare when it comes to when things are not going your way and things are happening around you. So let's look at all these areas as we go through these diseases one by one, okay? And since there are just a few of us, feel free to to interrupt at any point. If there is a point that resonates well with you and you want to add on to it, or you want to just react to it and say something on top of it, feel free to interject at any point, and then we can have a really good conversation. So don't just be there quietly. Even if you have something you want to say, just stop me, say, Charles, I really like what you said. I think this is brilliant. Or if you have a question as well, you can ask it as and when you have that question. Okay, so feel free to do at any point. Right, so where are we? So yeah, so diseases of attitude. You can see these three guys here. You know, got one at the office, the other one, I think, you know, she's just contemplating life. And this footballer, I don't know what's wrong with him. Clearly something is not going particularly well. But basically, when it comes to attitude affects us all. You know, it doesn't matter what background you are, you know, which corner of this world you come from. Eventually it comes down to your attitude, and it's your attitude that is going to determine your altitude, you know, which means that, you know, how high and how well you can fare in life, whatever that may be, really depends on your attitude. And so it's very important that we spend some time and have this conversation on attitude. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on the definition because we all know what attitude is, but in a nutshell, attitude is just a settled way of thinking or feeling about something. You know, it's sometimes we, as human beings, because that's who we are, we tend to make our minds up on things. And once we make our mind up about something, or a particular situation or a person, then we develop an attitude towards that thing. And that almost dictates all our prospective encounters with that thing. You know, so if it's a person, once you've made up your mind about someone, then you develop an attitude toward that person, and that will determine how you behave around that person every time you encounter that person. Okay, so if you like someone, for instance, you meet someone for the first time, you really like that person, you feel like you have a connection, you're having a really good time talking to that person, then you make up your mind about that person, that this is a good person, I like being around this person, and that becomes your thinking about that person. As a result, once you've made up your mind about that person, you start creating a positive attitude toward that person. And every time you see that person, guess what's going to happen? All of a sudden, you're smiling. You just want to be close to that person. You just want to talk to that person. Why? Because you already made up your mind that this is a good person and this is a nice person to be around. Okay, but the reverse is also true. You know, if you meet someone for the first time and for whatever reason you happen not to have a very good experience with that person, and what do? You make up your mind that now this is not a very good person to be around, and as a result, your attitude toward that person becomes also negative. What happens when you see that person next time? You see him on one side of the road, you cross the road to the other side, don't you? Why? Because you've already made up your mind about that person, and that eventually affects your behavior. See what Alan was saying earlier. You know, and you start acting differently and negatively towards that person. So yeah, so that's what attitude is. And the ABCs of attitude, you know, how does attitude appear? What are the components of attitude? The first one is affective, which is the mood. The attitude affects our mood, how we feel about a person, you know, how our emotions are affected. Do we feel good about it? Do we feel bad about it? Are we angered by something? Are we afraid of something? You know, so our attitude can affect how we feel. But also attitude affects how we act, as Alan had alluded earlier. You know, it affects how we do things, you know, whether we do something about something or we don't do something, you know, or what actions we take are so much determined by our attitude towards that situation. And finally, it's cognitive. Attitude is so much to do with our belief systems, you know, our knowledge of something, the information that we have about different things. I mean, a year or two ago, when the pandemic had hit, you know, you had so much negative publicity out there about the vaccines and all so much bad press on vaccine and what do you call this? I can't remember the name anymore. But you had all these false reports about, oh, you know, these vaccines, you know, people are out there to get you, you know, they're trying to get rid of some races, you know, they're trying to do this is not right, you know, this is wrong, you know, you had people coming from all corners of life attacking the global initiative and global attempt to eradicate the virus. But that really affected a lot of people's attitude towards the whole thing. You know what I mean? And you have a lot of people that didn't want to take the vaccines because of the information that had been thrown out there. You know, others who even want to take vaccines, they were so worried of their health and the health of their loved ones. And it was one big mess. So you can see how information and knowledge that we have and beliefs that we have can really affect our attitude towards different things. So yeah, so the ABCs of attitude: affective, behavioral, or cognitive, mood, emotions, actions, reactions, routine, beliefs, knowledge, and information. All these things are the things that do affect attitude and are affected by attitude as well. So it's very important to when we talk of attitude to think of it holistically in that way. Okay. So we did talk about this, isn't it? The analogy of an iceberg. Attitude is a small word, but it carries such great meaning, and it has such great impact in our lives. And you know, it's like an iceberg. You know, you have that little thing at the top, which is what you see, but then the attitude is that huge chunk of ice underneath the sea level that you don't see, but it's the one that dictates what happens. It's the chunk of the iceberg, you know, and therefore attitude is also like that. It's something that we usually don't pay too much attention to, but it does affect us so much. It affects the way we operate, it affects the way we function, it affects our productivity, it affects our performance, it affects our relationships, it affects our joy and our happiness even, because we have these attitudes towards different things that we go through in a daily life. And as a result, that has an impact in how we feel and our mental health and our happiness and our joy. So it's very important to address this matter head on and really try and create a more positive outlook to life, because that's how we can really have joy, true joy in our lives. Okay, so let me dive straight into the diseases of attitude. And the first one is indifference. Okay, now what is indifference? Indifference is the mild approach to life. And what do I mean by that? That means the lack of passion. You know, you're going through life with timidity. You're going through life with a sense of lack of enthusiasm. It's almost like, anyway, I find myself here and therefore, well, hey ho, let me just do this, you know. And sometimes we go through life like that. You know, and this can be in any area of our lives. You know, we go, if you have a spouse and you're married, you can go through marriage like that with indifference, almost like, you know what, I found myself with this person and therefore, you know what, well, let's see what's going to happen. You know, I mean, it's almost like you leave things to fate rather than really taking things by the scruff of the neck and making the most and the best of whatever circumstance you find yourself in. Okay, so indifference is one of the diseases of attitude, and sometimes the problem with indifference is that we don't see it as a problem. You know, we think it's okay to be indifferent. You know, we think it's okay to go to work and not really enjoying what we do. You know, we think it's okay to have people around you and not really develop nourishing and fulfilling relationships. You know, we think it's okay to just wake up in the morning and feeling down and out and going through your day like that. Why? Because this attitude of indifference has become so prevalent in our lives that we think it's okay to just feel like that. But I just want to challenge you today that no, I think life is meant to be passionate. Life is meant to be exciting, you know what I mean? And by exciting, I don't necessarily mean taking risk at every corner and really being reckless. That's not what I mean. But I mean really making the most of every opportunity that God has given us in this life. You know, every breath that we have, we need to live it as if it's our last, you know, and that's what I mean, passion in life, really taking these opportunities. I mean, like today, we have these 90 minutes that we're going to be sitting here and talking, making the most of it, you know, really trying to learn as much as possible, sharing as much as possible, really trying to make sure that we enrich each other's lives as much as possible. And I think that's the kind of attitude that we need to develop. You know, I love Jim Rohn, and he has this saying. He says, you cannot drift to the top of the mountain. You know, I know we have our ambitions. There are things we want out of life, but with the attitude of indifference, it's very difficult to generate the energy to make it to the top of the mountain. You know what I mean? Because you cannot just drift there. You know, you have to really make an effort. And to do that, you need passion. You need that desire, that urge to get yourself there. Okay, I call that the all-out attitude. You know what I mean? You know, it's like if you choose to do something, then you go out 100%. You know, so that's the thing that we really need to learn and cultivate and develop in any area of our lives. Okay, So the key thing here is to learn to put everything you've got in everything that you do. Okay. So if you've made a decision to do something, I want to start exercising, then you put everything into that. Like, I'm going to make this work, against all odds, I'm going to make this work. I'm not going to look for any excuses. Has to work. If you choose that, I want to make sure that I get a promotion this year. You put everything you've got to make sure that that happens. You know what I mean? And that's the attitude of passion, the attitude of really taking things by the scruff of the neck and taking responsibility for it and making sure that it happens. Okay. Napoleon Hill says in his book, Think and Grow Rich, he says, desire is the first step towards riches. Okay, that book is talking about how to build wealth and how to really be successful in whatever endeavor that you want to do. And in his book, it says that the first thing that you need is desire. Generating that passion, that desire to achieve what it is that you set out to achieve. Okay, so indifference is the first disease that we really need to watch out for and really need to overcome. And the way to overcome that is to generate passion. Okay, now let's go to the second one. And this is also a big one, and it's indecision. You remember when I was talking about indifference, I said that, once you've made a decision to do something, you really need to attack it with all you've got. Now, sometimes the problem could be that you can't make decisions. And this is quite common, that you find yourself in a situation, maybe you can relate to this. I certainly do relate to this. How many times you get into a crossroad in life and you have to make a decision whether to do one thing or the other. And for whatever reason, you keep putting off that decision, okay? And time keeps going and time keeps going. And as a result of that, you end up suffering because you're not making that decision. And it can be because of fear that maybe you might fail, or maybe you feel like you don't have enough information to make that decision, whatever it is. But then, for whatever reason, it gets to a point, either you're being forced to make a decision or somehow you brought yourself to make a decision several months later. And once you make that decision, you kind of think, my, why didn't I make this decision 6 months ago? Why was I waiting? Okay, that's the culprit of indecision. Indecision really steals our time. It really steals our energy. It steals our joy. It puts us in limbo, in a situation where we feel like, there's something I should do, but I can't do because I can't decide whether I should do it or not do it. It's a very bad place to be, and it leads to mental paralysis. And I always say a bad decision is better than no decision at all. And I want to challenge you, if you're in that sort of place where there are decisions that you've been putting off for so long, I challenge you to just make a decision with the information that you have. I mean, don't paralyze yourself with analysis. You just want to wait to know so much everything before you can make a decision. No, you already know enough. Make a decision. You're better off making a bad decision, because then you can change and correct it as you go, rather than not making a decision at all. So a bad decision is always better than no decision at all. Why? Because the more decisions you make, the better decisions you'll learn to make. If you don't make any decision at all, you'll never make any decision in your life, and you'll never be good at it. And when you try, you're going to make a bad decision, and then it's just going to be a cascade of that vicious cycle. Okay, so making decisions, it means you're leaving your comfort zone, and when you leave your comfort zone, that's when you grow, and when you grow, that leads to fulfillment and eventually happiness. Okay, so indecision is slightly different from procrastination, but I don't want to dwell too much into that. Suffice to say that if indecision is a disease of attitude, procrastination is more of a disease of, it's more of inaction. You might have decided to do something. This is what I really want to do, but then you just keep putting it off. You keep procrastinating on when you're going to do it. So it's slightly different, but I don't want to dwell in that. It's a bit of semantics there. But suffice to say that indecision is a disease of attitude that we really need to watch out for, and really try and make sure we are very prompt in deciding and picking out a direction and giving it all you've got with passion, and making sure that we try and make a difference. If we get it wrong, then we can change direction really quickly and take a different direction and do the same, because I believe that's the best way to live. Okay. So we've talked about indifference, we've talked about indecision. The third disease of attitude is doubt, okay? And just a quick reminder, as we talk through these diseases of attitude, let's reflect on our own lives, reflect on our own practice, on our relationships, on our workplaces, on ourselves, on our attitude towards money and wealth, on whatever that may be. Let's reflect on our lives and see how we can incorporate this, in our daily for our own growth. Okay. So doubt, especially self-doubt. I did mention this a little bit earlier when I was talking about what's your attitude towards self. That tendency to second guess yourself, lack of confidence, thinking that you can't do things. And usually this is a result of past experiences. Maybe you tried things in the past and they didn't quite work out. Maybe it can be something to do with your upbringing. Maybe you've been told in the past that you never amount to much. I've spoken to a few people that maybe their teachers at school were really discouraging them, telling them that they will not amount to much. Maybe it could be maybe people you grew up with, maybe your parents even, maybe somehow they said things that kind of you carried them with, and they kind of informed who you think you are. And I'm saying who you think you are because you could be something completely different. Sometimes we really underestimate ourselves and we don't really get the opportunity to awaken that giant within, and we keep suppressing ourselves because of doubt. And sometimes it's important to take that leap of faith and really think, what if I could be different? What if I could be more? What if I have more to offer? And really challenge yourself and really put yourself up there outside your comfort zone and really trying to do better, trying to do things differently. Because otherwise, I always say we are creatures of habit. And if we don't challenge ourselves, we will always revolve around the same things and around the same area and do the same things and not really trying to grow, because that's who we are. We're creatures of habit. So it's always important to actively and deliberately challenging ourselves and say, right, yes, I know I've tried this in the past and it didn't quite work out, but how can I challenge myself this time and try and do it different, try and do it more? You may try it, it may fail, but we always say we fail our way to success, isn't it? So when you fail once, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Pick yourself up, try again, because that's how it is. I mean, if you read lots of autobiographies everywhere, that's what it is. People keep trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and failing all the way to success. You know what I mean? So failing doesn't mean the end of the world. It doesn't mean doom and gloom. It just means that you have tried. Okay? And therefore, having that attitude can really help us overcome doubt. Brother Anthony, you have something to contribute. Why don't you come in?
Yes, let me. Yeah. Oh dear.
Yep, go on.
Just
I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. Yes, doubt. Like when you were talking about doubt, my mind just ran about sometimes, like people, if we focus our attention on the wrong thing, like on the wrong aspect of things that we know deep down that we cannot really achieve so easily. And then do you think that is about doubt or lack of confidence or whatsoever? If you're not going, think about the fact, like because I mean, like I'm a Christian, but sometimes I'm kind of a little bit.
You've gone off a little bit, Anthony. Anyway, when he comes back, I'll give him a chance to keep going. But what Anthony is saying is really true. It all comes down to what you're focused on. It says here right at the bottom, disproportionate focus on one's weakness. That's what doubt is. The truth of the matter is we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. Hi, Anthony, are you back?
I lost you guys.
Are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Yes,
I'm
sorry,
back. Yeah, we lost you midway. Yeah, carry on.
Oh, sorry.
Carry on.
Yes. So it's like, like sometimes I'm a Christian, but sometimes I'm a little bit critical about some form of Christian, especially, we who come from Africa, we have people that they feel that they want to succeed or like they want to do a specific thing, but instead of them walking towards that, they just go and sit down in the church and start praying and waiting for miracle, And then the moment they are not able to succeed, like for example, I actually enjoy most of my friends that every year they say, this is my years of grace, this is my years of this. But at the end of the day, they don't put any effort to work towards that. And when the year go around and they still stuck in the same position the next years again, I usually ask some of them, what is the state? What have you done to that year for you to achieve this thing? And when that thing happened 2, 3 times, people become so much self-doubt that they actually lost hope and lost trust in all those things, and then definitely they wreck right down to the bottom. Sometimes I think we have to take these things from another perspective, of a practical perspective.
Mm.
We have to take everything like a little bit, stage by stage, if you want to go out there. But if you try to grab everything at once, you just get that belief, or like say you are going towards that head on. At some point,
Yeah.
it also fails us. What my pastor described, like you can easily burn out, and then you lost hope, and then you feel that life is not what it should be.
Mm. Mm. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. You've got that absolutely spot on. We in life, you must take responsibility. I mean, if you throw that responsibility, all that responsibility to someone else, whether that be your friends, your family, your parents, your God, whatever that is, with the moment you shed all responsibility to someone else, that is a recipe for disaster. And that alludes to the example that you just gave. And it may have something to do with doubt as well, because people sometimes do that as a way to almost like mask their own perception of their weaknesses, and therefore they almost like put that responsibility elsewhere. But as I was saying before, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. And anybody, I mean, even the most successful person on earth in any area, they also have weaknesses. You know what I mean? But the difference between success and failure is overbearing focus on either strength or weaknesses. Now successful people tend to focus more on their strength. So basically, they overcome doubt by really focusing on strength. That I can do this, I can do that. I've seen myself doing that, I can do that. And if I could do that, therefore I can do this. While people who are more self-doubting, they tend to focus more on their weaknesses. And the problem with them is that focus on weaknesses is almost like morbid. It's almost like they feel like I'm the only one with this weakness. You understand what I'm saying? And as a result, they don't even venture because they think like, my weakness will be coming to light and people will think like I'm a failure. But the truth of the matter is we all have weaknesses. We all fail. You know what I mean? So get over it and just focus on your strength. And so that's the thing that we can do to really develop that self-belief, developing a brand new set of experiences. That's what I was saying earlier. Venture out, try new things, stretch yourself outside of your comfort zone and do something different. Focus on your strength, like I said, focus on what you're good at, get inspired with success of others. This is another thing. That's why I think autobiographies are really important. You want to be successful in a certain area, read as many autobiographies of people who are successful in that area and see how much that will do to your self-belief. You know what I mean? So
I'm trying to finish off mine, Charles. I'm trying to write my autobiography that is really packed with some good information,
I can't wait to read it, brother. I can't wait to read it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So those are the things we need to do. We really need to challenge ourselves to step out of our comfort zone so that we can overcome the doubt that we might have. Okay. Yep. Let's go to the next one. Oh, did someone else want to come in before we go to worry? No, let me go to worry straight away then. Now, worry is slightly different to doubt, because with doubt, especially self-doubt, it's more about focus on weaknesses. With worry, it's more about focus on potential future problems. Let me put it that way. And it's the tendency to focus on the worst case scenario. You know what I mean? Like you're planning to venture into a new business. Okay. If you're venturing into a new business, what could potentially happen? You could do so well and solve so many people's problems, and in the process, amass a great amount of wealth for yourself and your generations. You could end up bust. It's a possibility. You could end up losing all your money. It's there. You could do okay and then, and just do what most businesses do well enough to keep afloat and pay salaries and live a good life. You could, I mean, you have all these different, possibilities. But the attitude of worry is when you put extra focus on the worst case scenario. What is the worst thing that could happen? I mean, the chances of that happening could be 0.01%, but those who worry would look at that as the only possibility. And what that tends to happen is it ends up really paralyzing them. They can't do anything. Why? Because they think, oh my goodness, what if this happens? Okay. So the attitude of worry can be very paralyzing, can be very debilitating if you allow it to really consume you. Okay. So this is when worry becomes grossly exaggerated. I mean, don't get me wrong, worry is a very natural thing to humans. We do worry. I mean, when something happens which you're not too sure about, we get worried, and that's normal. But when that becomes the overriding feeling that dictates everything that we do now and for the future, then that's when it becomes a problem, and that's when I call it the disease of attitude. So it's very important to rather than being warriors, to be warriors. You see the difference, the one with an E and one with an O, we need to be warriors. What's the difference? It's just one letter, but the difference is huge. With warriors, the worst case scenario is the way to go. With warriors, they do consider the worst case scenario, but they don't focus on it. They always focus on the best case scenario. They always go for inspiration. What inspires them to do new things? What inspires them to go into new ventures? What inspires them to make a difference? Rather than worrying, what if I fail? What if people don't understand me? What if, so worry can be a very stinking attitude, can be a big disease that really hampers our progress and our ventures. So it's very important to take note of that and really try and avoid that. Okay. Over caution, very similar to worry again. This is the timid approach to life. You're always too cautious. It's that risk avoidance. You're what if this happens? And as a result, that almost like it really stops you from trying anything. Jim Rohn puts it this way. He says, life is so risky that no one will get out of it alive. Now he's not saying that we should go out there and take all the risks. No, but what his point is, sometimes avoiding risk altogether is not the way to go, because life is full of risk. Okay. The most important thing is to be able to manage the risk, looking at the risk and saying, like, right, there is this risk. How do I manage it in order to grow? Okay. And if we have that sort of approach, then we can overcome this disease of overcaution. Okay. So life is a risky business, and learning to well manage the risk is the roadmap to success. And if you fail to manage the risk as well, you'll be sure to fail. That's how it is. The reason people fail is because they fail to manage whatever risks they encounter in life. So avoiding risk is not how you succeed, it's managing it that we need in order to succeed. Okay. The next one is pessimism. Again, quite similar to overcaution. But with pessimism, the best way to describe it is seeing glass as half empty. You know what I mean? Do you see a glass as half full, or do you see it as half empty? That's what pessimism is. It's the tendency to see faults with every situation. That two people may be presented with exactly the same situation. One sees it as a horrible situation. Another person sees it as an opportunity waiting to happen. I just the other day, I met with a friend of mine, and some of you might know him. His name's Paul. He's been in our meetings a few times. We were having a conversation, and somehow there were quite a few of us, and some of the conversations steered towards the dire economic climate that we are faced, and with the elections happening here in the UK, in the Tory party, in the Conservative Party. And so we were talking about the possibility of going back into recession, and that the economy is not gonna do so well. And it was quite fascinating, because there were quite a few of us, and some of us were talking about it in a very negative way, that the country might go into recession and this, that, and the other. But then Paul came out and it was so refreshing because he was talking about exactly the same thing, but he was so positive about it. He was like, oh, yes, recession might happen. And he was talking about it almost like, imagine the amount of opportunities that are going to happen when recession happens, and he was so positive about it. Like, imagine, the new opportunities that are going to come, the things that you couldn't even dare think about it, but now you can do. Imagine the way the house price is going to crash. You'll be able to buy a house. Imagine this, imagine that. And it was so fascinating that exactly the same scenario. We're all in the same boat, facing exactly the same situation. One person sees doom and gloom, the other person sees an opportunity waiting to happen. And that's what pessimism is. So one side optimism, the other side pessimism, exactly the same scenario. Your choice. What do you want to choose? Okay. So that's what pessimism is, and that's the disease. It's what's your outlook of life? Do you look at life with a negative lens? Does everything seems to be negative? Are you always cynical? Do you always think people are out there to get you? Do you always see things as down and out? Or are you always positive? Are you always optimistic? Always looking at things and seeing the bright side of things and seeing opportunities even in situations that seems dire. You know what I mean? So that's the choice that we have to make. Okay. And a pessimist sometimes even delights in faults. I've seen people that, when things go wrong, they almost like light up. Why do they light up? Because they are almost like proven right. It's almost like, you see, I told you this is not going to work. And while an optimist, even when things go wrong, I can see Grace really agreeing to that. But with an optimist, even when things go wrong, they say, you know what, maybe it didn't work out this time, but I'm sure it will work out next time because it worked for someone else. So optimism doesn't necessarily mean that you're oblivious to the dangers of this life or to the failures. No, it just means that you choose to focus on the positives. Okay, so yeah, again, pessimists, what do? They look for excuses, and they celebrate when they're getting vindicated with their excuses, like, oh, see, I told you, because of this and that, it doesn't work. I told you, you see. While with an optimist, they don't look for excuses. An optimist always looks for ways to make it work. Okay, so yeah. So I want to challenge you here today. Always look for when you're faced with a situation that is difficult, when you're faced with a situation that seems hopeless even, always think, what can I do different? What can I do to improve the situation? That's why I love so much the Serenity Prayer. Have you heard of Serenity Prayer? If you haven't, just go and Google it, but it's quite popular. It goes like this: God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, to the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And eventually it comes down to that. If you're faced with a difficult situation, ask yourself a question, right? This is not really good. Okay. Can I do something about it? Yes or no? Okay. There are certain things, maybe there is nothing you can do about it. For instance, you can't do anything about the war in Ukraine, can you? I mean, there's absolutely nothing you can do about that. There isn't really that much you can do about the British economy right now. Probably there isn't really that much you can do about whether Rishi Sunak is going to be the next prime minister or it's going to be Liz Truss. I don't know, unless you're a member of the Conservative Party and you have to vote. But if you're not, there isn't really much you can do about that, is there? So we need that wisdom to know that there are things we really can't change, and there is really no point in wasting our energy on those things. But then there are things that we can do something about. Okay, so you need the courage to be able to make a change on the things you can do something about. Okay, you can do something about your health. You can do something about your relationships. You can do something about maybe your financial circumstance. You may not be able to do something about the British economy, but you can do something about your current financial circumstance. Okay? If you don't know how, you can learn about it. There are seminars out there. We also do seminars here to do with financial management and managing your personal finance. And we've done a few sessions this year and last year, and probably might do another one before the end of this year. So you can do something about that. Any situation that you're faced with, there is something you can do about it. And the best thing to approach life is to focus your attention on the things that you can do something about. Okay, so pessimism can be a really problem, can be a real problem. But if we choose to focus on the positives and the things we can influence, then that's how we overcome it. Okay, Grace, I saw you getting really excited there. Do you have something to contribute towards that?
Well, I've come across people who enjoy people's downfalls. I mean, things going wrong, and they say, "Oh, I said it, that sort of thing." And that's why I was laughing. There's somebody who complains all the time. She doesn't see any good in anybody or any, she's always criticizing. I know someone at church like that. So I was laughing.
I call those people energy suckers. They suck energy out of the room. You know what I mean? You come up, into the room full of energy, buzzing, passionate, and then you meet this person, and then 5 sentences later you feel so drained because they are so negative about everything. I totally get you, and that's the thing about.
I keep away from people like that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I can't stand it. I can't cope with it. No.
You can only deal with it so much, and that's why sessions like this are very important. Sessions where there is so much positivity, there is so much encouraging, there is so much you can do message, because I think sometimes we need more of that, because out there in the world, like I said before, it's like a battleground. It's so negative and everything. So when we meet here, we really need to encourage one another, really need to almost like pump each other to go out there and do better. Okay, so yes, absolutely, we need to start seeing the glass as half full. Jim Rohn, again, I love Jim Rohn. He says our lives are affected the most by the way we think things are and not the way they are. Okay, so many times we think it's the way things are that affects us the most. Actually, no, it's our own perception of what that means that will affect us. I'm going back to the example of my friend Paul. Okay, we are all talking about the possibility of the country going back to recession, and some of us are really panicking and like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Oh, what's going to happen? We're not going to be able to afford this. Oh, what's going to be happening? Oh, prices are going up. Inflation this, inflation that. Same situation, but Paul, that is, he's saying something completely different. He's saying, wow, imagine the amount of opportunities that are going to happen. Does it mean that he's not going to be hit by inflation? He will be hit by inflation just like anybody else. But he's chosen not to focus on that. Why? Because there is absolutely nothing he can do about inflation. Okay? But he's choosing to focus on the things he can do something about, the opportunities that might arise, and how best he can position himself to make the most of those opportunities. Okay? So it is not so much the situation itself that affects us, it's how we think of that situation. Okay? So our lives are affected the most by the way we think things are than the way they truly are. Okay, if we grasp that, we can really overcome this disease of pessimism. Okay. Next one, we've only got a few more. We've only got 2 more, guys, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion at the end and wrap this up. Okay. The next one is closed-mindedness. Now, this is the attitude of not learning, of not wanting to learn. It's almost like some kind of cynicism. You're cynical to learning. It's almost like the I know it all attitude. And I don't know if you've met these kind of people that they, whenever they're not open to criticism. 2, whenever you try and give them new information, they always interrupt you. Like no, I know. It's almost like a tendency to think that what I know is all there is to know. And it's a really dangerous attitude. And it can be so insidious. You may not really realize that you have that closed-mindedness, because it's not really as out there like pessimism. I mean, pessimism, you can't miss it. You cannot miss a pessimist. You only need to speak to a pessimist for 2 seconds and you can tell because they're energy suckers. With closed-mindedness, it's not quite as obvious, but it's probably just as dangerous. Okay, this is where you think you know everything, right? And Epictetus puts it this way: he says it is impossible to begin to learn which one things one already knows. If you think you already know something, you're never going to learn about it. Okay. The first step towards learning is admitting that you're ignorant. If you can't bring yourself to admit that you don't know something, then sorry, you won't be able to learn. So we have to be open to criticism. We have to be open to accepting that we do not know everything, and that everything that we think we know, we only know in part, and that there is a room for improvement, there is a room for growth, there is a room to learn more. And that's why even with these conversations, I like to keep them very open and very interactive, because I don't want to come here as a guru, as an expert in these things, because I'm not. And there is a room to improve, there is a room to learn. Yes, I've read a lot of books, I've learned a lot, I have a bit of experience in certain areas, but even there is so much experience out there. We all come from different backgrounds, we all have so much to offer. I always expect to learn something new, even from the sessions that I run myself. Why? Because it is with that attitude that I get to learn more. It is with that attitude that I get to expand my horizon, and my ability to see the world at a greater expanse, if you like. And that's how we grow and get more fulfillment out of life. Okay. So I challenge you to be more curious, read more, learn more, ask more questions. Okay. If say you encounter someone and someone says something that you felt like you didn't really know much about that person, give that person a call later. Say, hang on, Charles, you said this at that point in that meeting. What did you mean by that? I've never heard that before. What does that mean? Even when you don't quite agree with it, try and listen out that different perspective. Be open to challenges and different ideas, because the more you're open to that, the more you're open to things that don't quite fit well with you, the bigger you can grow. The problem with us is because we want to be so comfortable. We surround ourselves with people that only speak our language. We surround ourselves with people that only agree with us, people that don't challenge us, people that don't criticize us, and as a result we don't grow. But when we are open to being challenged, when we are open to people coming to us directly and say, you know what, Charles, what you said today, I absolutely disagree. Being able to take that and say, okay, so what's your perspective, and being able to take that on board and really try and not necessarily agree, but really trying and see things from different perspectives is a really good tool. It's a very good attitude to cultivate, and it will really help us grow and develop into matured individuals. Anthony, you want to come in? Come on, brother.
Yes, I mean, like, when we talk about the attitude, or like people trying to learn a new things, even like in our conversation with friends and this kind of thing, recently I had a scenario with a man that I used to work in his home, and this guy, he became so pissed with me that because I managed to teach him something that he had never knew throughout his life. This guy, he's an Indian guy. He was going with the idea that Jesus Christ was Christian, And during a conversation, I managed to just tell the guy, no, Jesus Christ was not a Christian. It was after he died that his follower created Christianity. This guy denied me. He started searching Google. When he got his answer, that was a breaking point, Up he becomes so annoyed with me because I changed the perspective that Jesus Christ was not Christian. So just like you said, there is a people who have a set of belief within themselves. If you attack this belief and they see the opposite side, which is not right with them, they actually devastate them, It creates a serious problem that I have to end up calling police for this guy. I'm being honest here, because he was actually attacking me so much. He says that, I threatened him on few occasions because he has some kind of belief system that actually they don't coincide with reality. And I was so much close to him, it reached a point that if I challenge some of this belief in some common conversation, it actually end up becoming a problem. He will search Google, and then when he gets another alternative idea, for that reason, he and myself, we are no longer friends,
Yeah, I totally hear you, brother. It's very true. Closed-mindedness can be a big problem. It can be a big problem. And like I said before, it's very insidious. A lot of us don't quite see how it affects us, but it does. And we end up not learning even from our mistakes, because we are very guarded to criticism. We don't like to be challenged, and therefore, as a result, we don't grow. So absolutely. So it's very important to be aware of that and really challenge ourselves when we find ourselves becoming either too worked out or too guarded or too upset when someone challenges you, or when someone has a completely different viewpoint to yours and you really want to back away from that person because I'm not saying you need to debate people and really have a quarrel with people because they have a different point of view as yours. No, but my point is we need to be open to the fact that we do not know everything, and that there is a much greater world out there beyond ourselves. And the more we're open to that, the more we expand our world, the more we expand our horizon. Okay. So yeah, absolutely. Learning is the way to go. I mean, if you can challenge yourself to learn one new thing every single day, you will be a completely different person. I mean, the reason the curriculum is so effective is because it's so consistent. When you get a child, a 5-year-old, take him to school, he goes through a curriculum, primary school, secondary school, A levels if they go down that route, university if they go down that route, or college. There is curriculum throughout, and it's a constant program of learning day after day after day after day. And why? When you do that, someone grows, someone develops, someone becomes something else. Okay. But the problem is once we go out of full-time education, we come into life, we kind of stop that habit of constantly learning, constantly being challenged, constantly being told that what you think you know is not correct. This is the correct thing. Okay, we kind of stop that process. And I think we need to find a way to get back to that, not necessarily going back to school, but finding a way to be constant learners of life, you know what I mean? And really challenging ourselves. If we don't know anything, try and read more about it. And thank God for the internet these days. There is so much resources out there in the internet. If you want to learn anything, you can learn it on your own, at the comfort of your living room, just with your computer or even with your phone, because there is so much information out there where you can really try and develop yourself and hone your skills and broaden your horizon in whatever field that you want to develop yourself in. So closed-mindedness is one of the diseases, and we really need to be mindful of it and try and avoid it. Okay. Right now I think complaining and self-pity is the last one, and Grace did mention a little bit about complaining and self-pity, and I think this is also a big problem. I mean, maybe let me just pose a question to you guys. Why do people complain? Why do we complain? Why do we think we complain? Let me hear it from you guys. Why do we complain so much? Complain about people, complain about the weather, complain about the economy, complain about the government, complain about God, complain about family, spouse, children, everybody. Usually, apart from ourselves, we rarely complain about ourselves, if you've noticed. But why do we complain? Let me hear it from you guys. Who wants to contribute?
Because we are not happy with the situation.
Because they're not happy with the situation, true?
Yeah.
Yes, Alan.
We don't understand.
I think that is the human nature.
Yeah.
The human nature. Yeah, we grew up like that. That's human nature. Whenever we get better, we don't accept it. Whenever you get wrong, we don't accept it. We always complain. Even if you find yourself in the road just driving, and then the car, maybe you switch off the car without knowing, and then you start, well, what's wrong? What's this? What happened? You start complaining about yourself. That's the human nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's true. It's true. Who else wants to come in?
Yes, for me, I think it's about we not being able. I put it on the idea of a self-esteem, whereby when you are not able to make a decision, you try to hide behind mask that the responsibility is being cast somewhere else. That's why we always complain. Because when you talk about we not trying to complain about ourselves or complain about other things, is that those things are our fault and we are right. So it's about us telling us the right and wrong. I'm right, they are wrong, it is wrong. That's why we try to complain to justify our points of our standing point.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. It's some kind of a blame game, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
yeah. We're trying to blame everybody else, but ourselves. That's why I pointed out earlier. I said usually we complain about everything else except ourselves. Why? Because we keep pointing fingers elsewhere. But that's true. That's what we do. That's what we do. Complaining and self-pity is a big problem. Now, what's the difference between complaining and self-pity? Complaining is when, yes, like we said, something has gone wrong and it's like you blame someone else for it. Self-pity is a bit more insidious than that. Self-pity is when you feel sorry about yourself because something has happened to you. Okay, it's when you start. It's self-victimization. That's probably the easiest way to describe it. When something has happened, and it's like, oh, why has this happened to me? Or why is it always me? Why am I suffering? Or it's you instead of focusing on a solution, you're focusing on how affected you have been by a particular situation. And I understand it affects people of certain cultures more than others. It can be a very cultural thing. I mean, to some people, the way they are brought up, it's like if they're faced with a situation, then the first thing they think about is, right, how do I get myself out of this situation? What do I need to do? They take responsibility straight away. Whilst with others, it's like when something happens to them, it's like, oh, why has this happened to me? It's almost like they expect someone else to come and solve their problem. It's almost like they dish out that responsibility to someone else. So every time we talk of complaining and self-pity, the first thing that comes to mind to me is not taking responsibility. The element of responsibility always comes up. It's always someone else's fault. You never take responsibility for your own failures. You always look to someone else as to why something hasn't happened. And the problem with that is that you don't end up challenging yourself to change. You don't challenge yourself to improve. You don't challenge yourself to do better. Why? Because once you say it is someone else's fault, then what you're actually saying is that it is someone else's responsibility to change it. Okay? And as a result, you don't do anything about it. But if you take responsibility of your circumstance, if you take responsibility of a circumstance, even if it doesn't necessarily involve you directly, then what you're saying is that I don't like this thing. I don't like the way it's happened to me, but I want to do something about it. Do you remember? I go back to the serenity prayer again. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay. So I'm faced with the situation. I can't do anything about this, but I can do something about this. So this is what I'm going to do. And I'm taking responsibility of it, and I'm going to change it within my ability. Okay. So I say to complain is to surrender your fate onto someone else's hands. Okay. Captain William Ernest Henley, in his famous Invictus poem, he says, I am a master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. And I mean, if you read the story of this guy has been faced with so many problems in his life. For most of his life, he lived with polio, and he suffered for most of his life. And they ended up amputating him. So he was disabled for a big part of his life. He actually died a young man. I think he died in his 50s, I think, or something like that. It could be younger. I can't quite remember. But he's had a very difficult life. But he refused to feel sorry about himself. And he has achieved so much in poetry than most people, because he chose to focus on his strengths, on his ability, on what he can do, on the things he could affect. And that's what he focused all his attention on. So he says, I am a master of my fate. I am a captain of my soul. So he takes responsibility. And I always say, taking on responsibility is a sign of maturity. And to be a leader, you need to take responsibility beyond yourself. Okay. Why am I a leader of my family? You know, I call myself a parent. Why am I a leader? Because I take responsibility beyond myself. I take responsibility of myself, but also of my family. I take responsibility over my children. You know, if my children don't do well, I take that personally. It's my responsibility. You know, if my children are not well, it's my responsibility. If my children are misbehaving, it's my responsibility. So when you're taking responsibility beyond yourself, that's how you become a leader. Okay, in a football team, you know, when a football team is not performing very well, you know, who ends up getting sacked? It's the manager. Okay, why? Because he's the leader. He takes responsibility. Does he play football? No, he doesn't kick a ball. You know, but other people kick a ball. Other people make mistakes, but he ends up being the one getting sacked. Why? Because as a leader, you take responsibility. So it's very important to really part ways. I know it's like we've all alluded to, it's all human nature. It's all natural to complain about situations, to complain about things that are happening to us, to blame others for things that are happening to us, rightly or wrongly, it doesn't matter. It's natural to do that, but it's very important to check ourselves. It's very important to stop ourselves from doing that, because that is never going to solve any problem. It's always important to look at things objectively and say, like, right, this thing has happened. What can I do about it? How can I instigate change here? How can I change this circumstance? You walk into a workplace, you know, and things are not working well. You know, you hear people complaining about the manager, hearing people complaining about circumstances. Oh, these people don't care. They don't look at our things. They don't address our problems. You can choose to continue complaining with them, okay, and see no change, or you can say, right, what can I do about this? Okay, and look at it objectively and try and address that thing and be an agent of change, rather than a person that just keeps complaining and be self-pity and really not see change in your life. Okay, so that's it, guys. So we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about indecision, we've talked about indifference, we've talked about doubt, we've talked about pessimism, we've talked about closed-mindedness, and finally we've talked about complaining and self-pity. So I just want to throw it to you guys. Let me just stop sharing for now and hear your thoughts for the next couple of minutes before we wrap up this session. So what do you think, as far as attitude is concerned? How does it affect our lives, you know, in any area of our life, work, relationships, you know, personal, yourself, change? How can we improve this in our lives? The floor is open, guys. Yes, Anthony.
Yes. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, like, my mind is fresh about this thing. So, you know, like, we are, like, this thing about attitude is we are focused on being successful, okay? But do you think it is the right attitude to do dodgy thing? At the end of the day, you become successful.
Good
do you
question.
think that is the kind of right pattern for us to follow? Imagine, you know, I think you are in a men's group, isn't it?
Yeah.
You are in a men's group. A few weeks ago, somebody put up a little video about one of African origin British athletes. This guy, he has been so famous, but he make a confession about how he came to this country, which means he do a dodgy stuff for him to be here, for him to get what he got. I am planning a kind of topic or article about that, but I just want for us to think about this thing. Do you think it is the right thing for somebody to do dodgy thing so that you will become successful?
Absolutely not. And I'm saying that categorically, because that itself shows a bad attitude. I mean, like I said, attitude reflects itself in so many different ways. Okay, the attitude that it doesn't matter what I do. That itself is an attitude that you kind of feel like as long as I get the results, it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter how many lives I wreck. It doesn't matter how many laws I break. It doesn't matter how immoral I get to get what I want. That itself tells you of the mindset of a person. So that itself speaks of a bad attitude. And therefore, I would say no. I'll tell you what, I am so for success, whether that be material success, whether that be financial, whether that be career-wise, whether that be in making a difference, whether that be philanthropic, whichever way you define success, academically, whatever it is, you can define success in whichever way you like, okay? I am very much for it. But I think the journey, how you achieve what you want to achieve is just as important as you actually achieving it, if you know what I mean. And if you've attended some of our sessions before, I think we've talked about this before, about the journey being just as important as the destination. I mean, so many times, you know, the problem is we focus so much on the destination, on that's where I want to get to. I want to do that. I want to be rich. I want to achieve that. I want to be somebody. That's the destination. We focus so much on that, and we don't really pay particular attention on the journey. How do we get there? How do we forge relationships? How many lives do we enrich in the process? How many people get inspired by what we do? Or to the contrary, how many lives do we destroy? How many relationships do we end up breaking down? You know, it's like you have these people that become so successful in one area and they end up wrecking another one. You hear of the big people, you know, and they are so successful financially and they end up in crazy and very, very painful divorces because they couldn't invest in their relationships with their families, or they end up, you know, being hated by their children. They have so much wealth, but still they can't have a relationship with their children. So the answer is I think the journey, how you go about achieving what you're trying to achieve, is just as important, if not more important than you achieving it. I don't know whether I've answered that. Maybe others can come in and contribute to that. But it all speaks to the attitude. What's your attitude in life? What is it that you really want to see? What do you see in yourself? What kind of a person you are, you know? And yeah.
I mean, you really touch it, you know, like when I saw that video, you understand, it just take my mind back on certain things. I'm really planning to reply that video, or like to actually write an articles about that, you know, because in life, it is like you said, the journey is important as well as the destination, you know. In life, I believe what we call like self-esteem. Many of the time we focus, or many of our people, they actually focus on the result, like the wealth that it's gonna bring for them. At the end of the day, they don't mind the lies, they do these things. Then at last, when their secret want to come out, for them to reserve certain part of it, they use another blame, they cast another blame somewhere else, they create another story. You know, most time people try to pity for them to create a story for people to pity them. And this is something that I've known that Africans are really good at doing. And this is the reason why we lack respect in the sight of other people in the world. And I am 100% against this thing. I spent 14 years as a refugee in Sierra Leone, not because I was not able to travel abroad, but because I refused to change my name from a very early age. I went there as a child refugee. People wanted me to change my name so that I will enter other people's family, like what that guy did. So when I saw that video, you know, it just make a strong flashback. I told these people, I left Liberia, I'm in Sierra Leone. If you don't recognize me as a refugee, I know the Geneva Convention, what refugee defined. If you don't believe that I can use my own name to be me, when I'm out there, let me be here. It took me 14 years to fight against that. I came with my pure name, and I'm here, and I'm proud, very much proud of that, even though I've not achieved anything. But deep down within myself, when I reflect on those journeys, it was all about the attitude. I knew I'm going to make it. But the only thing was when, that was the bottom line. And when the time reached, I grabbed it, and I am still myself. How many of our brothers, they travel abroad, they are using fake name, fake document, fake everything about them is fake. Yeah. You know? And these people know they are fake. So how do you think people will even respect you? How do you think people respect you? This is one of the things I think the African people have to change our mindset about using fake, you know, like I don't really know how to describe that. You know, when I saw that video, it annoyed me more than anything. You know, because look the kind of that guy, look the respect every one of us have for him. Look where he put himself now because of his attitude from the very day he was planning to do. This thing that we are planned, he's not telling the truth. It was planned. It's a planned work. He deliberately worked on that because that's what he wanted. He focused on the destination, not the journey. And that is the reason is like this. So I just wanted for us to ponder over that.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It's very true. Attitude can affect all facets of life, and it can be looked at all angles and how it really plays a role in our lives. That is a very good example that you just gave, and it shows another side of it, isn't it? That how the way our outlook of life and focusing too much on the end results can really result in us, like you're saying, not taking responsibility to change our circumstance and really throwing that blame to someone else. And like I said before, leadership, if we really want to be leaders in any area of our lives, and by leadership, I don't necessarily mean taking positions of political power. I mean, if we did, that would be brilliant. You know, I would love to see lots of our African brothers being in political place, even here in Europe. You know what I mean? It's brilliant. But that's not necessarily what I mean. Leadership is about taking responsibility beyond yourself. You know, you see a situation, do you take responsibility of it, or do you pass it on to someone else to sort it out? Okay, like yourself, Anthony. I'll give you yourself as an example. You know what I mean? You said that you've come all this way. You've taken 14 years to resolve that refugee status, and here you are. You haven't achieved anything. I beg to differ. I think you have achieved a lot. I think the fact that you took that stand itself and managed to overcome and still retained your dignity, because there is a dignity in identity, because you chose your identity and kept that dignity and managed to overcome that, and you're still here, and not just here, but you're championing and you're fighting for the rights of others. That to me is leadership. You're taking responsibility beyond yourself. You had your own responsibility, but you've gotten to the stage where you have the experience, the knowledge, and the exposure to influence others as well. And that's why I'm saying I can't wait to read your book, man. Get it out there, because that's the thing. Instilling change, seeing a situation and taking responsibility for it. And I think you've put it out there very, very, very well. We really need to take more responsibility and have that attitude of saying, right, this is a situation, this is a mess I find myself in. I really need to make this work in a way that will bring dignity and respect, not just to yourself, but to the community at large as well. So yeah, what do others think? Well, we can spare a few more minutes to have a bit of a discussion, guys. I would like to hear from as many people as possible. You can come in, guys. Any other contributions? It's a very tough crowd here today, isn't it? Attitudes. What do you guys think?
That's a question. Is it inherited or attitude? Because
yes, John.
Yeah, I'm John here. Is attitude inherited by family or by culture or by different regional?
Yep, good question. Good question. Yeah. What do you guys think?
I don't think attitude is something that can be inherited. It is individual. You know, it's about your own personality. Attitude is about personality, you know. So it will never be inherited. No, it's not part of our DNA. You choose yourself. I mean, you cannot choose your family, but you can choose your friends. So you cannot, influence the attitude, or you can influence the attitude of people that you mentor, but you cannot actually, become the exact carbon copy of someone else. Because if you talk, not even identical twin, so we cannot inherit attitude.
I agree with you, Anthony. I think it can be learned. If that's what you are alluding to, John, that it's not inherited in the sense that it comes from DNA, but it can be influenced by upbringing, in a sense that there is a cultural element to it. Let's agree. Like I said before, there are certain cultures that tend to be more pessimistic than others. There are certain cultures that tolerate self-pity more than others. Okay, a good example, for instance, is the culture in the UK. For instance, I think the reason why the guy you mentioned, when he came out with the story the way he did, it's because he knows that in the presiding culture there is so much self-pity and blame, and therefore, if you can portray yourself as a victim, then people will will rally behind you,
Pity you.
will feel
Yeah.
sorry for you. You
Yeah.
understand what I mean? So culture can have an impact on our attitudes towards certain things. Absolutely right. And therefore a bit of upbringing, a bit of culture and everything. But I think the bottom line is it's a learned behavior. And because it's a learned behavior, it is something we can also unlearn. And I think that's the good thing. That if we can point out that these are the things I don't like in my attitude, you can actually change them. Because once you say that, oh, this is in my DNA, I've inherited it, you're almost condemning yourself to permanency, that you can't change it, isn't it? But I think attitude is something that we can deliberately change if we can actively say, look, I really want to improve in certain areas. I really want to be a more positive person. I really want to be more passionate. I don't want to be indifferent. I really want to be self-confident. I don't want to be a doubtful person. You can really choose. I really want to be a person who takes responsibility. These are things you can really work on and you can work towards with effort and with resilience and with action. Okay, so yeah, that was a very long answer, but yeah, I think that's how we can look at attitude. What do you think, John?
That is a good advice. In fact, from when I joined, I was just blown out with too many. I'm like, what? I've been missing this thing. So I've got too much info today. What I'm requesting is this presentation. And we have it in like soft copies. It's just something like, I would like to go over again to read, to give me that, say in the morning before I go to work, I can't do anything. I just read these things to give me that motivation.
Absolutely, brother. I'll tell you what, soft copies might not be easy to get, but you could, these sessions are recorded, and we upload them in our YouTube channel. So I can share the link to the videos. I usually tend to share the links. If you're in the women group, in the men's group, I tend to send the links to the videos after they are recorded. Then you can kind of go through it again and again. And do that. So I will definitely share with you guys, and then we can keep encouraging one another. Alan, you wanted to say something, brother?
Yeah, I say it was a great topic here. I really enjoyed, and because today I've been just listening, I learn and it's made me to come again and enjoy with you guys the discussions. I learn a lot of attitude. I learn a lot of things. So I really say appreciate. I won't be end with you guys today, but next time I'll be on time, and then you see me on the discussion.
We value your contribution, Alan. You say you haven't spoken, but you've spoken a lot. You've given us a lot of contribution. So thank you so much, brothers. Our time is running so much. I think we can end it here for today. But I just want to leave it with you as a challenge. I did mention a few areas before, didn't I? As a question, what's your attitude towards work? What's your attitude towards wealth? What's your attitude towards people and relationships? What's your attitude towards change? What's your attitude towards self? What's your attitude towards health? And what is it that you're doing about all those things? So I want to challenge you, pick one area out of those areas or any other that you might choose based on our conversation and say, maybe I have an area I need to improve here. Don't spread yourself too thin. Don't try to do everything at once. Just pick one area and say, like, for instance, pick work and say, right, I've been going to work with a really stinking attitude. I've always been very negative about my work. I've never really valued what I do. And say, right, I want to change this. I want to have a more positive attitude towards work. I want to be more switched on. I want to be more, to be more excellent. I want to give more. I want to, challenge yourself in one thing, or if it's a relationship, maybe it's your spouse, and say, like, really, I want to work on my relationship with my wife, for instance, and say, really, I want to have a better attitude. I want to be more proactive in making this work. I want to take more responsibility at things, whatever that may be, challenge yourself with one thing and say that in the next couple of weeks, I really want to improve in this area. And then maybe when we meet next time, we can have, time of testimony. We talk about how we've seen us challenging ourselves and changing our attitude, how that has worked for us. Okay. So having said that, thank you so much, guys. I wish you a fantastic weekend. Enjoy yourselves and be great ambassadors for change. And hopefully we'll meet again soon, and take care.